Welcome to your ultimate pit stop, Piston Pundit. In early 2025, the U.S. auto industry hit a hard turn. President Trump's 25% tariffs on vehicle imports from Mexico and Canada shook Detroit to its core, especially for General Motors, with nearly half its production outside U.S. borders. Now, GM faces a brutal choice: bring production home or risk financial freefall. As Ford and GM executives scramble, investors brace for impact, and factories adjust on the fly. We're breaking down the strategic maneuvers, economic fallout, and what it all means for the future of American manufacturing. Buckle up. Here come the key turns. GM in the crosshairs of tariff turbulence. When it comes to tariff fallout, no automaker sits in the blast zone quite like General Motors. Unlike Tesla, with its tight-knit US-centric supply chain, or even Ford, which maintains a beefier domestic manufacturing base, GM has leaned heavily on its North American neighbors. As of Q1 2025, a jaw-dropping 46% of GM's US-sold vehicles are built in either Mexico or Canada. Heavy hitters like the Chevrolet Silverado, GMC Sierra, and Equinox are all assembled outside US borders. With the new 25% tariff in play, analysts predict price hikes of up to $8,000 per unit. That's not just sticker shock, that's a death blow to price competitiveness. Investors got the memo loud and clear. GM's stock nosedived 7% the day the tariffs were announced. CEO Mary Barra quickly stepped in, assuring stakeholders that GM has short-term tactics in motion, everything from sourcing local materials to tweaking logistics. But let's be honest, GM's intricate supply chain is no oil change. It's major engine work. Components often cross the border multiple times before a vehicle rolls off the line. Every trip adds cost, delays, and complexity. But short-term patches aren't enough when you're facing long-term disruption. That's why GM is already pivoting to deeper changes. Enter its next phase: emergency tactics and long-term realignment. So how does GM respond when it's caught in a fiscal tailspin? With a two-pronged approach: patch the leaks now and rebuild the entire ship mid-voyage. Step 1. Accelerate U.S. production. Fort Wayne, Indiana, home of GM's Silverado and Sierra production, is about to get a major makeover. The facility is undergoing a temporary shutdown in April to increase capacity. GM plans to onboard 225 to 250 additional workers and bring in temp labor to ramp up output stateside. CFO Paul Jacobson is also eyeing tweaks like trimming non-essential operations, renegotiating logistics contracts, and locking in steel and aluminum prices from domestic sources. Smart plays, considering how metals tariffs are compounding costs. But it's not all about short-term duct tape. Behind the scenes, GM is prepping for a tectonic shift, bringing production back to American soil. The company's 4 Mexican plants have long been EV and truck powerhouses, but that's now a liability. GM has already earmarked a hefty $59 billion toward US-based EV production and facility upgrades. Still, reshoring is no pit stop. These moves take years, and any misstep risks derailing both GM's tariff response and its EV transition. But GM isn't navigating this storm alone. Its longtime rival, Ford, is charting a different course through the same economic headwinds. 2 giants, 1 crisis, very different strategies. Before we delve deeper, do us a favor and smash that like and subscribe button. It helps Piston Pundit reach more enthusiasts like you. And trust us, we've got plenty more under the hood. Let's now roll into Ford and GM, 2 roads, 1 crisis. Ford and GM may share Detroit zip codes, but their responses to the tariff storm show 2 very different strategies under the hood. Ford CEO Jim Farley didn't mince words. He warned that the 25% tariff would blow a hole in the US auto industry we've never seen before. But Ford's muscle is its domestic production. Nearly 80% of its US sales are assembled right here at home. While not immune, Ford's design inherently dodges much of the cross-border impact. Ford leadership went full throttle on diplomacy too. Executive Chair Bill Ford flew to Washington for emergency talks with the administration. Though the outcome didn't deliver lasting exemptions, Ford is lobbying hard for carve-outs on Canadian and Mexican engine components. GM, meanwhile, played a quieter game. CEO Mary Barra has echoed support for Trump's reindustrialization vision, signaling cooperation rather than confrontation. But make no mistake, GM's exposure runs deeper. Their reliance on cross-border production, particularly for key truck and EV models, leaves them less nimble in this trade-induced tailspin. Analysts are already forecasting divergent outcomes. Ford may emerge with dents. GM? It's facing a full rebuild, financially and structurally. But how did we get here? Let's pop the hood on the political mechanics driving this tariff turmoil. Tariffs and the tug-of-war in Washington. Behind the curtain, Washington's tariff push has triggered an all-out lobbying brawl. From automakers to farmers, industries are clamoring for exemptions. Yet with no formal process in place, influence often depends on who's got Trump's ear. GM and Ford executives made urgent appeals, highlighting supply chain chaos. Mary Barra warned that some components, like wire harnesses, cross borders multiple times before assembly. But President Trump doubled down, stating, "I couldn't care less if prices rise. It'll push Americans to buy US-made cars." A temporary exemption for USMCA-compliant automakers expires April 2nd, and with no clear roadmap ahead, car makers are stockpiling parts and racing the clock. Analysts warn the tariffs could add $5,000 to $15,000 to imported vehicles, and even US-built models could jump $3,000 to $8,000 due to foreign parts. Industry experts like Sam Abwel-Samid say the real risk isn't just pricing, it's a slowdown in innovation and job growth. While the UAW supports the tariffs for protecting domestic jobs, critics argue this blunt approach could spark more harm than revival if not handled with care. And that leads us to the million-dollar question. Can GM pull off the comeback? GM's make-or-break moment in America's manufacturing revival. At the heart of this manufacturing standoff is a critical question. Can GM truly bring production back to the US and stay competitive? GM's Mexican operations are massive. Plants in Toluca, Silao, Ramos Arizpe, and San Luis Potosi produced over 700,000 vehicles in 2024, including 60% of Mexico's total EV output. Rebuilding that scale domestically won't be easy or cheap. While GM has committed $59 billion toward US EV production and plant upgrades, analysts question whether that's enough to match output without triggering serious cost spikes. And with GM phasing out gas-powered models simultaneously, the company faces a complex double transition. To stay afloat short-term, GM is stretching US factories like Fort Wayne to the limit, adding shifts and hiring temps. But long-term success hinges on how quickly it can pivot operations without falling behind. If GM falters, rivals like Tesla, Rivian, and Hyundai, already expanding their US footprint, are ready to gain ground. GM's decisions now won't just shape its future, they'll test the strength of America's reindustrialization push. So where does all this leave the industry and the American consumer? Final thoughts. GM's gamble on tariffs and transformation. General Motors is placing a high-stakes bet, reshoring production, navigating tariffs, and reinventing itself during a global industry shift. With nearly half its fleet built abroad, the pressure to adapt is intense. Short-term strategies like boosting US truck output offer a temporary lane, but lasting success hinges on deeper structural change, political navigation, and worker support. So now the spotlight turns to you. Do you think GM's $59 billion US investment is enough to reverse decades of outsourcing? Will American buyers tolerate price increases for the sake of domestic jobs and supply chain control? And can GM realistically outpace competitors like Tesla and Hyundai in this new protectionist race? We want to hear your takes. Drop them in the comments below and keep the conversation rolling. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell to stay updated on the biggest turns in the automotive world. More stories, more insights, and more torque-driven takes are coming your way, right here at Piston Pundit. Thanks for watching and see you next time. You can now check out any of the videos on the screen. There's plenty more to explore.